another criticism. Saturday, only one news a day. This time, unfortunately, no, I know it's been a lot of killings in Palestine. But today I'm going to read the special economy. Look, live update: Israel army prevent rescuers from bomb Gaza sites as death toll surges. I didn't got what exactly happened. Israel army prevents rescuers from bomb Gaza sites as death toll surges. Anyways, the same genocide as usual. I'm going to read the special economy. So it's terrible, but that's the truth. This is a genocide happening. Is normal. This genocide in Palestine is normal in Gaza. Anyway, this is a pretty civilized world we're living in. I'm not being ironic, but think about it. Before Rome, before anything, there was a lot of, I guess it was, I'm not sure that if it was worse than today, but definitely there was a lot of empires. There was no right, any right, just violence, power and violence. So a lot of news related to the credit ranking something, and this one says Modi stripped U.S. government of top credit rating. A photograph of Modi said extending U.S. President Donald Trump's tax cuts will add trillions to the U.S. debt burden. What? Something happens with this credit rating. Modi cited rising debt, saying U.S. had repeatedly failed to end the trend of large annual fiscal deficits and interests. It's raining here. It's a rainy day here, and it's raining, and I am. I have a flu. Can I ill? My throat is irritated. How to say that? Irritated throat. I'm sensible. I can get worse. Just 1 second. And here we go. Modi's ratings has stripped the U.S. government on its top credit rating, citing successive government's failure to stop a rising tide of debt. A surprise move that could complicate President Donald Trump's effort to cut taxes and send ripples through global markets. On Friday, Moody's lowered the rating from gold standard AAA to AA1. Quote, successive U.S. administration and Congress have failed to agree on measures to reverse the trend of large annual fiscal deficits and growing interest costs, end quote. It said as it changed its outlook on the U.S. to stable from negative. I don't don't know what I don't know if this is about the U.S. but Modi. What I don't know what's Modi. Is the Indian government, I guess. I don't know what's Modi. On Friday. But it added the U.S. quote retains exceptional credit strengths such as the size, resilience, and dynamism of its economy and the role of the U.S. dollar as global reserve currency. End quote. Modi's now it is explained what it's Modi. Look. Moody's is the last of the three major rating agencies to lower the federal government's credit rating. Standard & Poor's downgraded federal debt in 2011 and Fitch Ratings follow in 2023. In a statement, Moody's said, quote, "We expect federal deficits to widen, reaching nearly 9% of the U.S. economy by 2035, up from 6.4% in 2024, driven mainly by increased interest payments on debt, rising entitlement spending, and relatively low revenue generation." End quote. I thought Modi was the former Indian Prime Minister. Now he's Richie something. Now he's an Indian too. No. I don't remember. I don't know nothing. But I guess Modi is still the Indian Prime Minister. Anyway, extending President Donald Trump's 2017 tax cuts, a priority of the Republican-controlled Congress. Modi said will add $4 trillion over the next decade to the federal primary deficit, which does not include interest payments. White House Communications Director Stephen Cheung reacted to the downgrade via a social media post, singling out Modi's economist Mark Zandi for criticism. He called Zandi a political opponent of Trump. Quote, "Nobody takes his quote-unquote analysis seriously. He has been proven wrong time and time again," end quote, Cheung said. Stephen Moore, former senior economic advisor to Trump and an economist at Heritage Foundation, called the move, quote-unquote, outrageous. Quote, "If a U.S.-based government bond is in AAA asset, then what is?" End quote, he told Reuters. The Department of the Treasury did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the Reuters news agency. So it's about economy, about agencies, investment rating. The world's two biggest economies agreed to de-escalate the soaring tariff chase off. I've heard that this is a 30-day truce on CGTN. CGTN, beautiful journalist. There's a Liu Qing. I love Liu Qing. Bond market road concerns. Gridlock political system has been unable to tackle the huge deficits that the U.S. has accumulated. Republicans reject tax increases, and Democrats are reluctant to cut spending. On Friday, House Republicans failed to push a big package of tax breaks and spending cuts to the Budget Committee. A small group of hard-right Republican lawmakers insisting on steeper cuts to Medicaid and President Joe Biden's green energy tax breaks joined all Democrats in opposing it, a rare political setback for the Republican president. Since his return to the White House on January 20, Trump has said he will balance the budget while his Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has repeatedly said the current administration aims to lower U.S. government funding costs. Trump's attempts to cut spending through Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency have fallen far short of its initial goals, and attempts to raise revenue through tariffs have sparked concerns about the trade war and global slowdown, roiling markets. I guess there will be no investment, just like Ben Norton said on CGTN Liu Xin dialogue, I guess. Oh, I don't remember the name of this, but Ben Norton was there and he said there will be no investment. All that investment, the $10 trillion, there will be no investment. In Ben Norton's opinions and mine too. I will pay attention to this subject. Left unchecked, such worries could trigger a bond market rout and hinder the administration's ability to pursue its agenda. The downgrade, which came after market close, sent yields to Treasury bonds higher, and analysts said it could give investors a pause when markets reopen for regular trading on Monday. Quote, "Very surprising, this is big. Markets were not expecting this at all," end quote, said Tom DiGaloma, managing director of rates and trading at Missler Financial in Utah. Source news agencies published on Al Jazeera English. Now I'm going to see the second one. It's similar, it's like, but it's not the same agency. World Bank Group. A stage director looks on at the IMF World Bank annual fall meeting. World Bank says Syria eligible for new loans after debts clear. Saudi and Qatari payments settled Syria's arrears, I don't know this word, arrears. It's not areas, but arrears. Saudi and Qatari payments settle Syria's arrears, allowing World Bank and IMF to re-engage. May 16th. Maybe yesterday. I'm not sure which day is today. The World Bank says it will restart operations in Syria following a 14-year pause after the country cleared more than $15 million of debt with financial backing from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The United States-based institution announced on Friday that Syria no longer has outstanding obligations to the International Development Association, IDA. It's fund dedicated to low-income countries. Earlier this week, Saudi Arabia and Qatar paid off Syria's outstanding debts of approximately $15.5 million, paving the way for renewed engagement with international financial bodies. Quote, "We are pleased that the clearance of Syria's arrears will allow the World Bank Group to re-engage with the country and address the development needs of the Syrian people." End quote. The bank said, quote, "After years of conflict, Syria is on a path to recovery and development. The The bank is now preparing its first project in Syria, which will focus on improving electricity access, a key pillar for revitalizing essential services like healthcare, education and water supply. Officials said it marks the beginning of expanded support aimed at stabilizing Syria and boosting long-term growth. U.S. to lift sanctions on Syria. The bank's announcement coincides with a dramatic shift in U.S. policy towards Damascus. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Thursday that Washington will begin lifting sanctions imposed on Syria, including measures under the Caesar Syria Civilian Protection Act. On Wednesday, Trump met Syria's President Ahmed al-Sharaa on the sidelines of the GCC summit in Riyadh, marking a historic breakthrough in relations between the countries and the first such meeting between the two nations' leaders in 25 years. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed that waivers could be issued, easing restrictions on entities previously penalized for dealings with the now former administration of Bashar al-Assad, which was toppled in December. Quote, lifting sanctions on Syria represents a fundamental turning point, end quote. Ibrahim Nafi Kushji, an economist and banking expert, told Al Jazeera, quote, the Syrian economy will transition from interacting with developing economies to integrating with more developed ones, potentially significantly reshaping trade and investment relations. End quote. The move represents a significant moment in Syria's reintegration into the global financial system after 13 years of civil war and isolation. In April, a rare meeting was held in Washington involving officials from Syria, the IMF, the World Bank, and Saudi Arabia. A joint statement issued afterwards acknowledged the dire state of Syria's economy and promised coordinated efforts to support its recovery. The International Monetary Fund has since named its first mission shift to Syria in more than a decade. Ron van Ruden, previously involved with IMF operations in Ukraine, will lead the fund's renewed engagement. And there's a video. Trump meets Syria's new leader in Riyadh. Martin Muesleisen, a former IMF strategy chief, noted the urgency of providing technical assistance to rebuild Syria's financial institutions. Quote, those efforts could be funded by donors and grants in kind, end quote. He told the news agency Reuters, adding that some support could begin within months. Al-Assad was toppled after a lightning offensive by opposing fighters led by the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham armed group last December. Syria's new government has sought to rebuild the country's diplomatic ties, including with international financial institutions. It also counts on wealthy Gulf Arab states to play a pivotal role in financing the reconstruction of Syria's war-ravaged infrastructure and reviving its economy. The government, led by interim President al-Sharaa, also wants to transition away from the system that gave al-Assad loyalists privileged access to government contracts and kept the industries in the hands of the al-Assad family, source Al Jazeera and news agencies, published on Al Jazeera English. I guess that's it. I'm going to read the very last one. And says, explainer, Trump's big, beautiful bill at a crucial juncture. The photograph shows U.S. President Donald Trump wants his party to fall in line with his tax bill. The bill proposes sweeping changes, including Trump's 2017 tax cuts and enacting deep cuts to social programs. By Andy Hirschfeld, May 16. United States House Republicans, quote, big beautiful bill, a wide-ranging tax and spending legislation. It is at a crucial moment. The nearly 400-page legislation proposes sweeping changes, which include expanding the 2017 tax cuts, slashing taxes from businesses and individuals, and enacting deep cuts to social programs like Medicaid and SNAP. While Republicans tout the bill as a boon for economic growth and middle-class relief, nonpartisan analysts warns it could add trillions to the national debt and strip millions of Americans of medical and food assistance. The bill will be voted on by the White House Budget Committee today, and if passed, will be voted on the floor next week. The most substantive part of the bill is an extension of the 2017 tax cuts. The tax bill will add at least an additional $2.5 trillion to the national deficit over the next 10 years and decrease federal tax revenue by roughly $4 trillion by 2034. Passing the legislation will also raise the debt ceiling, which sets the amount of money the government can borrow to pay for existing expenditures by $4 trillion, a sticking point for hardline Republicans who want deeper cuts. Here are some of the key measures in the proposed bill in its current form. Changes for households. The bill increases standard deductions for all Americans. Individual deductions will increase by $1,000, $1,500 for heads of households, and $2,000 for married couples. The bill extends the child tax credit of $2,000, which would otherwise have ended with the expiration of the 2017 tax cuts at year's end. It bumps up the child tax credit by $500 per child for this tax year and runs through the end of 2028. And it also includes a $1,000 savings account for children born between December 31, 2024 and January 2029. The legislation will also allow families to annually contribute $5,000 tax-free. $5,000 tax-free. There is a new tax deduction for Americans 68, 65 and older. The new bill will give a $4,000 annual deduction starting this year for people marking a gross income of $75,000 for a single person and $150,000 for a married couple. If passed, the rule will take effect for the current tax year and run until the end of 2028. Quote, it will just make tax paying more complicated and more uncertain when a lot of these things ultimately expire, end quote. Adam Mitchell, Director of Tax Policy Studies at the right-leading Cato University, Cato Institute, told Al Jazeera. And there's a video. Trump wants to revive U.S. manufacturing, but economists say automation and global trends make that unrealistic. And there's another. Well, the text continues. Another provision in the bill modifies state and local tax SALT deductions, state and local tax. It allows fillers to be able to write off some of what they paid in local and state taxes from their federal fillings. Under the 2017 Tax Act, that was capped at $10,000, but the new legislation will raise that to $30,000. Some Republicans, particularly those in states with higher taxes like New York and California, have been pushing to raise the cap or abolish it altogether. However, they have faced fiscal hawks and those who see the increases as relief for those already wealthy. The bill includes an increased benefit for small businesses that allows them to deduct 23% of their qualified business income from their taxes, up from the current 20%. There is also a call for no taxes on overtime paid for select individuals. It will not apply to people who are non-citizens, those who are considered, quote, highly compensated employees, end quote, and those who earn a type wage. The bill, however, also eliminates tax on tips, a critical campaign promise by both Donald Trump and his Democratic rival Kamala Harris. The bill will allow people who work in sectors like food service, as well as hair care, nail care, aesthetics, and body and spa treatments, to specifically deduct the amount of tip income they receive. At the federal level, employers will still not be required to pay tip workers more than the sub-minimum wage of $2.30 hourly. The intention is that workers will be able to make up the difference in tipping they receive from customers. Forget about this. This news is just enormous. Forget about it. And it's all about domestic policies in the US.